Rigged election? What does that even mean? Well, folks, I think we are about to find out. Now, we're already getting reports from residents in at least 2 cities just here in Texas that are complaining that they voted a straight Republican ticket, and then they're seeing the voting machines switch their ballots over to the Democrats when it comes to the president and the VP pick. So people, you've got to check your ballots, take a video of it, take a picture, and make sure you double check it before you hit submit.
Tonight, though, Tarrant County trying to calm fears over voting glitches after rumors filled Facebook and social media that some machines were changing people's choices.
Doug and Kaylee, administrators here at the Tarrant County Election Center, tell us they've been getting a lot of calls about possible faulty machines. So they tested their devices, tested them again, and then invited us inside to see for ourselves what they discovered. Back-to-back days of record-breaking turnout saw nearly 90,000 voters hitting the polls early to cast their ballots in Tarrant County. With those numbers, there are bound to be issues.
Saw email, saw a Facebook post. It was my brother, it was my sister, it was my second removed cousin.
Stephen Vickers says he's fielded report after report that the county's machines are busted.
It spreads like wildfire and it's hard to put them out.
It started with this Facebook post, now shared hundreds of thousands of times. A user claimed their relative in Arlington voted straight Republican, but noticed at the end their vote for president bounced to Democrat.
Regardless of who's calling, when they're calling, or even if it was my second removed step cousin, we take these allegations seriously.
Vickers believes when folks vote straight party, they use the navigation wheel to attempt to get to the next page. When they can't, they hit enter, which selects whatever candidate they're hovering over at the time and then flips to the next page.
My best guess is the voters aren't following the instructions because we can't replicate it.
While they take every report of error seriously, a flood of calls, whether it's true or secondhand information, can take a toll on the process. They investigate every claim.
When we take that booth out of service until a technician can get there, we're taking a booth away from a potential voter.
Vickers says his team only has one goal: to make your vote accurately count. Administrators tell us that if you are experiencing troubles voting, do not cast your ballot. Once it is in, it is in. They tell us that there should be a help button at all their machines and also a clerk or a judge standing by to assist you.
Donald Trump has made the rigged system a centerpiece in his campaign, and now there are new concerns after a report showing that 16 U.S. states, 16 of them, have used voting machines tied to leftist billionaire George Soros in the past. Just how concerned should we be? For a moment, let's go to the former Lieutenant Governor of New York, Betsy McCoy. Betsy, apparently a significant number of states will be controlled, voting machines in 16 states controlled by a company tied directly to George Soros and his personal quest for open borders.
That's right. This really bears investigating because Smartmatic, this UK company, one of the top guns there, Lord Malik Brown, is very involved with George Soros's left-wing globalist enterprises, many of which are trying to tilt elections in Europe and in the United States. And Smartmatic bought a company in California. We can go on with all the details, but we need more investigation of this.
Absolutely. Here's a U.S. diplomatic cable on the Smartmatic machines. It says this: the Smartmatic machines used in Venezuela are widely suspected of, though never proven conclusively to be susceptible to fraud. One study found that the machines contacted the server before printing the results, providing the opportunity at least to change the results and defeat the rudimentary checks set up by the International Observation Mission.
That's right. We've got to look into this. But by the way, there's already an airtight case against Soros trying to tilt this election, steal this election using his money. He's very close to Hillary Clinton. He is pouring millions of dollars into third-party organizations like a super PAC called Priorities USA. And those groups are performing dirty tricks as the election approaches at the direct command of the Clinton campaign. That's against the law. So here's a complaint filed with the Federal Election Commission last Friday, outlining what George Soros's group and others are doing, violating the law. They're using money, for example, to pay this is so pathetic, mentally ill people and homeless people to show up at Trump events, cause violence. They're handing them homemade looking signs that say Trump is a racist. It's the same kind of dirty tricks George Soros used 2 years ago in the European parliamentary elections. We've seen this playbook before.
Now, we know Jill Stein was very brave, coming out, talking to be much more brave. We haven't seen Gary Johnson speak out, say anything, but she's saying, you know, listen, if Trump wins, we might not sleep as good at night, but if Hillary Clinton wins, World War III without a doubt.
In an interview Tuesday at his Florida resort, Donald Trump warned that a Hillary Clinton presidency will lead to World War III because of her proposed involvement in Syria. The Republican presidential candidate said, "You're not fighting Syria anymore. You're fighting Syria, Russia, and Iran, all right? Russia is a nuclear country, but a country where the nukes work as opposed to other countries that talk." Clinton has called for a no-fly zone in Syria to help bring its civil war to an end, while President Barack Obama and others have opposed the idea, worried about the risk of entering into conflict with Russia, since a U.S.-enforced no-fly zone means the U.S. could shoot down a Russian jet if it entered Syrian airspace.
Russian Foreign Minister has lamented that the European Union has been unwilling to develop a pragmatic, responsible and self-interest line in its relations with Russia. Lavrov made the comment during a meeting with members of the Association of European Businesses in Russia.
The strategic review of relations with Russia that took place at a meeting of the European Union a week ago showed that there is still no willingness to develop relations that correspond to their own interests.
In January 2015, President Barack Obama, addressing lawmakers in the U.S. Congress, accused Russia of making an aggression on Ukraine and said that thanks to Washington's response, Moscow has been isolated and the Russian economy is in tatters.
Philippine President Rodrigo Duterte on Tuesday ratcheted up his rhetoric against the United States, warning that he will not stand for his country to be treated, quote, like a dog with a leash. In reference to a long-standing agreement that allows the American military access to Philippine bases, Duterte said he does not like having foreign troops stationed in his nation.
This friendly encounter in Beijing would have been hard to imagine just a few months ago, before Rodrigo Duterte was elected president of the Philippines. Relations between China and its fast-developing island neighbor had turned sour in 2012, after Beijing took control of Scarborough Shoal, a reef in the South China Sea that is also claimed by the Philippines.
The new defense cooperation agreement that was signed today.
In 2014, with relations between Manila and Beijing at rock bottom, the Philippines signed an expanded defense pact with the U.S., giving its longtime military ally greater access to bases close to potential flashpoints in the Asia-Pacific region, where China is the main strategic rival of the U.S. When Manila won its arbitration case in July, a thaw on regional tensions seemed unlikely. But by then, the Philippines had just sworn in a new populist president. Rodrigo Duterte turned Philippine foreign policy on its head.
We have long ceased to be a colony of the United States.
He lashed out at the U.S. for criticizing his bloody war on drugs and for its supposed failures as an ally. He also vowed to repair relations with China.
The only hope of the Philippines economically, I'd be frank with you, is China.
Experts say the China-Philippines rapprochement is a strategic victory for Beijing and a blow to American prestige in Asia.
Early Monday morning was a fearful one for residents of Israel's southern communities near the Gaza Strip after sirens warning of an impending rocket attack blared across the region.
On Monday morning, a code red alarm sounded in southern Israel after a projectile launched from Gaza fell short and landed inside the Strip. Even though no damage was caused to either side of the border, the Israeli Air Force has responded by striking terror infrastructure belonging to Hamas in northern Gaza. The IDF holds Hamas responsible for every terror incident emanating from the Gaza Strip. Earlier this month, tensions flared between Israel and Hamas after 2 rockets hit the southern Israeli town of Sderot, leaving 3 civilians hospitalized. Israel has been on high alert following the incidents and is also wary of continued tunnel construction in the region.
Hey, one by one, hey! No jump, no jump, no jump.
2016 is the deadliest year yet for refugees and migrants attempting to cross the Mediterranean Sea. On Tuesday, the United Nations Refugee Agency said more than 3,700 lives have been lost so far this year, just short of the number of deaths reported for the whole of 2015. The UN says there are multiple reasons for the increase. About half of those who have crossed the Mediterranean have traveled from North Africa to Italy, a route known to be particularly dangerous.
Don't move! Very dangerous! Okay?
È anche collegato un po' protesta, cioè ultimamente hanno chiuso 5 sala preghiera a Roma per problema sempre urbanistica, cioè amministrativo, nulla a che vedere con la sicurezza.
Si parla in Italia spesso di moschee abusive, noi non possiamo fare altri, io da solo non mi posso fare la legge. Affittiamo dei posti e ci mettiamo a pregare.
Non è proprio parliamo di una protesta, realmente un invito e un simbolo che stiamo portando da dentro sala preghiera in piazza.
On Monday, French officials began resettling some 6,500 refugees who were evicted this week from the sprawling jungle camp. The refugees have been relocated to 450 sites across France, including a 16th century castle. The chateau in the Loire region will house up to 150 displaced migrants until next year. President François Hollande, who is facing political pressure during an election year, announced he would demolish the squalid settlement near to the English Channel port of Calais. Now authorities are scrambling to find alternate locations to house the displaced refugees.
Millions of Americans are looking at a spike in their health care premiums. That's because plans under the Affordable Care Act are expected to rise as much as 25% in the next year.
Business owners and employees across the Bay Area now scrambling to find affordable insurance in the age of the Affordable Care Act.
Not so affordable.
Not so affordable.
The White House confirming double-digit increases for next year, just 1 week before open enrollment starts.
Is it always this busy?
Always. I mean, we're packed almost 24/7.
Jason Grief runs U.S. Health Advisors.
We can help them navigate the marketplace and also show them options out there that are off the marketplace.
He says until the Affordable Care Act is reformed, rates will go up.
Look, Paul, if you've got a risk pool, right? And anybody can jump into the pool, whether you have cancer, heart attack, stroke, diabetes, mental health problems, okay? The rates have to go up.
So how do you protect yourself? Jason's strategy? Forget Obamacare, pay the penalty, and find insurance off the market.
Our clients pay the penalty. They're able to get access to better coverage, access to more healthcare providers, and they're still way ahead of the game.
You're at 5 now. Outrage on Long Island over Superstorm Sandy money nearly 4 years after it devastated our area.
Federal government is trying to take back millions of dollars it gave to communities that were hit hard by the storms.
U.S. Senator Charles Schumer pointed to an enlarged photo of the heavy-duty cleanup work in the Nassau County town of North Hempstead. The work went on for months following Superstorm Sandy's destruction, including many downed trees and power lines. On the South Shore, Long Beach was hit even harder by the storm. Yet now the Inspector General's Office of FEMA, the federal agency overseeing storm recovery, is asking the towns to repay some of the relief money. FEMA's Inspector General says $9.9 million was overpaid to North Hempstead and $668,000 to Long Beach schools.
The Inspector General says that some of the debris removal contracts were not awarded in a reasonable manner. Hello, Inspector General, it was an emergency?
FEMA's Inspector General says contractors were paid too much profit and contracts should have been bid out. But Senator Schumer and town officials argue that FEMA teams on the ground signed off on the payments 4 years ago to speed up the cleanup.
I don't know what you think, but we felt that post-Sandy cleanup certainly was categorized as an emergency.
As you'd expect, FEMA's attempt to claw back the money is outraging local taxpayers.
I think in many ways we're overtaxed, so I'd be very much opposed to that.
4 years, I don't know what the statute of limitations is, but it doesn't sound right to me at all.
The Long Beach school superintendent says students would be victimized.
We can't afford to replace that money without tapping into reserves, which would otherwise go to students.
Senator Schumer says he will aggressively lobby FEMA to back off.
Celebrities and politicians are joining the Standing Rock Sioux tribe in their fight against the Dakota Access Pipeline. The large-scale protests have drawn media attention throughout the country, although a few times reporters covering the protests have been caught up in the action. Democracy Now!'s reporter Amy Goodman faced riot charges. A judge later dismissed those charges. Independent filmmaker Daya Schlossberg was arrested while filming a peaceful protest of the pipeline. She faces felony charges and, amazingly, up to 45 years in prison.
I was aware of the hugely unprecedented nature of this action and knew that it wasn't likely to be covered in mainstream media, and I wanted to bring attention to the issues that it was targeting. So I was filming it. I was filming it in order to report that to the public.
So what precipitated the arrest?
I was there. I was documenting, and they didn't know what my involvement was. I told them I was a filmmaker and that I was filming from public property, and they still put me in jail for 53 hours and convicted me of 3 counts of conspiracy, which are all felonies.
So you faced felony charges and possibly...
charges.
Yeah, you felony charges and possibly up to 45 years in prison. Now, that just doesn't seem normal. That sounds outrageous. And there is a petition online that has been circulated, and it was sent to me, and that's how I got on this story.
Mormon leaders are telling gay and lesbian members in a new website launched Tuesday that attraction to people of the same sex isn't a sin or a measure of their faithfulness, but reminding them that acting on those feelings violates fundamental doctrinal beliefs. The message is part of a Mormon and gay church website that includes dozens of articles, teachings, videos, and stories from church members who identify themselves as LGBT. The website is designed to encourage compassion and acceptance for LGBT people and strike a softer tone on an issue that has led to criticism of the Mormon Church. The Latter-day Saints are one of many conservative faith groups staunchly upholding theological opposition to same-sex relationships amid widespread social acceptance, while attempting to foster a compassionate stance toward the faithful LGBT community.
Officials in Virginia have reversed building safety codes for abortion clinics. The regulations were enacted under Republican Governor Bob McDonnell. They required the clinics to follow hospital-like outpatient standards, since mistakes during abortion procedures can put women's lives at risk. Pro-abortion groups opposed the rules, complaining that they were too expensive for abortion businesses. So Democratic Governor Terry McAuliffe filled Virginia's Board of Health with his appointees, who then overturned the regulations.
UNESCO is set to vote on a second resolution this week that ignores both Jewish and Christian ties to the Temple Mount, and now a group of American lawmakers are standing up against it.
The resolution is similar to the one ratified last week by the body's executive board, which excluded references to Jewish and Christian ties to Jerusalem's most holy sites. On Wednesday, the UNESCO Heritage Committee will vote on the resolution called the Old City of Jerusalem and its Walls, and it's expected to pass with a majority. Now, a bipartisan letter initiated by U.S. Senator Ted Cruz has been sent to UNESCO, in opposition to the divisive document calling the proposed resolution yet another attempt to rewrite history by denying Christian and Jewish rights to Jerusalem. The resolution refers to the Temple Mount compound exclusively by its Muslim name, Al-Aqsa Mosque, and solely defines it as a Muslim holy site of worship, even though the Mount is also the holiest place in Judaism. The American lawmakers combating it claim that attempting to erase the Jewish and Christian connection to Jerusalem will damage prospects of peace between the Israelis and the Palestinians.
An incredible find in the Arctic. Russian scientists have discovered a Nazi weather station operated by Hitler's Germany. It was abandoned in 1944 when the team got trichinosis and had to evacuate. The station was destroyed, but not before delivering hundreds of weather reports. The reports were needed to help submarines conducting raids along the Northern Sea. Hundreds of artifacts have been found, some preserved by the harsh climate. Those artifacts are on their way to Russia, where they'll be open to the public later this year.
An 8-year-old boy from South Carolina went more than the extra mile to help someone in need. He went an extra 800 miles. When little Cameron Smalls saw a picture of another 8-year-old boy who lost everything in the Louisiana floods back in August, he wanted to do something to help. Cameron went straight to his church and then throughout his community, including his local police, looking for help. In 2 months, he raised about $4,000 in donations and a carload full of gifts. Then he and his mom and some South Carolina police drove all the way to Louisiana to meet Ethan Como to make this special delivery.
I thought to myself, if I was Ethan and I got affected by the flood, I would be sad. So I immediately wanted to help him.
His follow-through was so strong. He made sure that he had people backing him, the Mount Pleasant Police Department, our local churches, our community, family, friends. He made sure everybody was involved.
Toys and stuffed animals and blankets.
There is still good people out there. These are amazing people that they're raising a fine young man.
Because when you do good things, it makes you feel good, and when you do things for others, God will bless you.